Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bill Murphy, and welcome to another exciting edition of Thursday Night Gridiron here on the Sports Insanity Network. We have a great show for you folks today because it is divisional weekend. But why would I do this alone? I wouldn't, because I'm not crazy. I have my esteemed panelist. Joining me here today is Mr. Alex Snay.
What's up?
And from SIN's The Throwdown, Connor Douglas and Alex Fatai.
Woo woo.
Gentlemen, good evening.
We're basically like Bill's devil and angel on both of his shoulders.
Which one's the devil, which one's the angel?
I think we all know I'm the devil, so.
Oh, really?
I give you a hard time on the week.
Oh, I could rub in about last week, Connor.
No, we're not going to talk about.
Let's not get into that for him.
Mike McCarthy's a great coach, man.
Hey,
I could, but I don't feel like it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Or do I? Nah, I'm just kidding.
If you want to, I mean, you and me.
I already had to deal with old ops guy. in his morning right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to put you through the same pain.
It's been a tough week. We'll just say that.
Okay. So that aside, enough dilly-dallying. It is divisional playoff weekend. And we got some great games coming, don't we, boys?
Yeah, we do.
These are literally the most exciting matchups of the year right now, so I can't wait for them.
I know. I am so excited. So today we're going to be focusing mainly on the Saturday games, and we'll talk a little bit about the Sunday games later. But if you want a more in-depth dive, and go check the folks out over on Sunday Sideline Report, Sunday at 10. Go check them out. They'll give you more in-depth about the Sunday games. Okay. So the first of the two games we're going to talk about, and this is the first game, 4:30, I believe, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tennessee Titans. After a great game last week in Cincinnati, guys, what do you think?
It's going to be a good one. I mean, I know one thing: we're not going to have the same officiating crew as we did for this past week's game.
Nope.
But I'm excited. You got one team that's very pass heavy, but respect Joe Mixon as well with the Bengals. And then you got the powerhouse known as Derrick Henry coming back after a long hiatus from his injury. And I'm excited to see how it turns out. I think matchup wise, this is probably a good matchup for the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I feel like they would much rather play this Tennessee team on the road than play the other two teams that we're seeing on the AFC side this week.
Yeah, going off of that, I would say this is the best matchup for the Bengals. You do not want to see Kansas City or Buffalo right now. And, Titans, this is great. King Henry is back. We're all excited to see him back. Hopefully things will go well for him, and hopefully there's no lingering injury that we see. But this is going to be, Henry. This is Henry versus Joe Burrow. This is just the rushing game versus the passing game of the Bengals. That's what it really comes down to. And this is going to be hopefully one of the most exciting games of the year. And I'm curious to see what happens there in terms of defensive game plans, because, knowing the Titans for these games now that Henry's back, all eyes, especially everyone's going to be watching Henry in this game. That's where absolutely. That's where the main focus is right now. And, when you look at that, the moment Henry, if he gets shut down at all, and you're going to see Ryan Tannehill out there, Ryan Tannehill is going to force some mistakes out there, I think. And that's the key to this game for the Bengals to me, goes through stopping Henry.
Yeah. Alex S., what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of wish this was the AFC Championship game, to be honest. I think it would intensify the excitement a lot more. But I truly think that this will be a nice little back and forth slugfest. I mean, I do kind of think the Titans will come out on top when it's all said and done, but I'm excited mostly to see how the Bengals do like with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow against Derrick Henry. I think, as the other Alex put it, that'll probably be the most exciting thing to watch.
I also want to point out there too. I mean, when we're looking at the Bengals, this is a young team too. So to have them even be in this divisional round this weekend, shows that they have a really bright future going forward.
Yeah. So you guys brought up Alex, and you brought up Derrick Henry. So he is recovering from hold on. He injured his ankle, I think, right? Or
it was a broken foot.
Broken foot. He injured his foot, and he was out for a few months.
9 games.
I think since Halloween.
Yeah, he's been out for 9 games.
For 9 games.
And he almost had 1,000 yards too. That's the craziest part.
Yeah,
I know. He was like in second place for MVP voting.
Yeah.
So how do you guys think what are your expectations? Because in his last 2 games against Cincy, he ran 164 yards for 2 touchdowns. So what do you guys think? What are your expectations for him? Sorry, I can't talk today. For Sunday.
Well, looking at this Bengals defense, obviously they have problems when it comes to the passing game and that secondary, but rushing wise this year, they have been really underestimated this year. They actually ranked fifth in fewest rushing yards allowed per game. Now, no, I'm talking about the Bengals. The Bengals defense ranks 5th in fewest rushing yards allowed. Titans rank 2nd, but we'll get into that later. But the Bengals rush defense has actually been really tough this year. And I think this actually proves to be an impressive challenge for Henry. First game back, you're up against a top 5 rush defense. And, I expect him, regardless, I expect him to probably get over 100 rushing yards, maybe 120 for all we know. It's Derrick Henry. Let's be honest. But, for his impact on that team, that entire game plan runs through him, regardless of getting the 1 seed. When we look at, they struggled, they were limping to get that 1 seed, and Derrick Henry is their entire game plan. As soon as he went down, Ryan Tannehill struggled. He threw more picks and fumbled the ball way more. He was honestly one of the disappointments of this year. So when we really look at this game matters a lot for the Titans in terms of what Henry can do. If he can have a great game against this defense, then the next week against Buffalo or Kansas City, regardless, then I think we're all in for a Derrick Henry show that could lead to a potential Super Bowl run for all we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you give him the extra couple weeks to rest. They wanted him maybe for that week 18 matchup against the Texans. Now you got 2 extra weeks of him healed. You're at home. You don't want to shoot out, though. If you're, the Titans, I think the game plan for them is to just chew as much clock as they can, make sure the ball is in Burrow's hand as small as possible. I think that's their biggest game plan. They don't want to shoot out, because then when you have a shootout, then you take Derrick Henry basically out of the whole game plan. I know this year they got him more involved in the passing game, but he's no Christian McCaffrey on that end, So that's going to be definitely a huge factor in this. And but if this is the same team that we've seen over the last couple of years with Derrick, let's not forget, they were in the championship. What was it, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And they also beat the Bills this year already. And also, didn't they beat the Chiefs as well? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure though.
So.
But yeah, so these guys, this team is definitely very underrated, and who would think that as a 1 seed? But it's going to be a good game. I'm excited.
Yeah, real quick, just because you did make the comment about you don't want this to be a shootout. What we've seen these past couple of years, and even this year through 8 games with the first 8 games of the year with Derrick Henry, the moment that team is down a couple scores early, they abandon the run. They panic, and then it forces Ryan Tannehill into this situation, and he gets frazzled out there. He really does. So you don't want to be, if you are Titans, you do not want to be down a couple scores early. Because if you are, there's a solid chance we're going to see them abandon the run game early on, which we have seen these past couple of years when those situations arise. And that could spell huge problems for Titans moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, that's your thoughts.
I do question if Derrick Henry might get off to a slow start just because, it's his first game back from injury. I think like after the first few snaps, he'll start to turn it up a bit. Hopefully he'll find his groove, even though he is going up against a tough defense, in my opinion, against the run. But yeah, I just think like you just have to get him easing in. Don't rush him in. Just let him take his time to find his rhythm, and then he should go off.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that I think Henry might be good this first game. Like, don't get me wrong. One of the best running backs. If he didn't get injured, I would say he'd be a shoo-in for MVP.
He probably would have 2,000 yards too.
He would have 2,000 yards, and he would have been a shoo-in for MVP.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's be honest. This has been a pretty weak MVP year, but I'll give it back to Bill. I totally agree.
Yeah. But and I just want to say, with Derrick Henry, him getting injured continues my curse. And let me tell you what that curse is, folks. The curse is that for the last 2 years, my first pick in fantasy football gets injured. Last year it was Chris McCaffrey. This year it's Derrick Henry. So I'm very upset right now.
Bill, is it them? Is it you cursing them actually when we think about it that way?
Or do you think it's like, damn it, Bill picked me on his first fantasy team?
It looks like I got to get injured week 9.
And destroy Bill's hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
As he sits in the corner and cries.
Weeps.
Holding a bottle of Jameson.
As he's holding his a plush Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
And wearing his New England Patriots Snuggie.
No, I do not. If somebody sent me that, I'd burn it. And I go, thank you. Here's a picture of what I'm doing with it. I roasted hot dogs over it. They taste delicious.
Good fire starter.
What was that?
I said it was a good fire starter.
Yeah, it was a good fire starter. And it helps the hot dogs taste great. As you can see, I am a terrible person. Okay, so moving right along. Okay, we talked about the run game with Derrick Henry. We gotta talk about the passing game a little bit. Which receiving duo do you think is gonna have a bigger game? Do you think it's gonna be AJ Brown and Julio Jones or Jamar Chase and T. Higgins?
It's gonna be Jamar and T. Higgins, absolutely. When I think about this, also you got to remember who's throwing the ball. This isn't the Ryan Tannehill that we saw last year. This is the Tannehill we have seen this year and the mistakes he's made and how badly he's underthrown and even overthrown his receivers. And not just looking at it that way too. When we look at what these receivers has done, Jamar Chase just broke rookie record. He was one of the most explosive, exciting players to watch this year. T. Higgins has been one of the underrated 1,000-yard receivers of this year. He can get the job done. A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown did actually, when you really look at it, statistically, he did have a solid year because he did miss a few games, obviously. So in the games that he played, he was solid. He had to bounce back and battle adversity. So I give him the credit there. Julio Jones, last year with injury problems and struggling, and now this year again he's struggling again with injury problems, lingering problems, and we're starting to see a decline in Julio. So when you really look at the two receivers that are probably going to make the most impact in this game, it's probably going to be T. Higgins and Jamar Chase over AJ Brown and Julio Jones, based off of what we've seen this year from Julio and AJ combined, and also who their quarterbacks are right now.
So I guess you're not with Julio down by the schoolyard.
Not this year.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. Connor?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Alex there. Just because, you got two explosive guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, both 1,000-yard receivers, and that offense has been such a powerhouse. That receiving core, phenomenal. I I really like them this weekend, and they will probably. I could see this. I could see Joe Burrow getting like 350 this game, and a large portion of that coming from those two. I also too, when we're looking at Tennessee, it could improve by a lot because I mentioned with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, most of his successful pass attempts are when it's in play action. So now with Henry back, maybe we will see a more successful pass game than we've seen most of the year. And also too, with Julio, there's a huge decline. It's not the Julio we knew and grew up and loved. Julio now, this week 18 was his first touchdown all season. So that really does show you the decline. I know he's not a big touchdown guy, but for a guy like Julio to only have one touchdown on the year does say a lot about his season. But yeah, I agree with Alex there.
Alex S.
Yeah, I don't think it's really a question that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are more dynamic than A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. To be honest, I'm not sure anyone really thinks of Higgins as being a 1,000-yard receiver because of how Jamar Chase overshadows him all the time. So honestly, I never really thought of that. And then A.J. Brown, I think he's good still, but just been kind of banged up all season. And Julio Jones, I think he's starting to get past his prime. Sucks because he was one of my favorite receivers to watch with Atlanta, and I still remember that catch he had, even though the Falcons choked that Super Bowl with that toe tap, when he caught it in bounds right before with a toe tap right before he went out. Even though that would have won them the game if they just knew how to run the ball and not make stupid play calls, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I just think Julio is starting to decline. And I just don't think he can produce that much anymore. And they really have to rely on A.J. Brown if they're going with the passing game.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going to go with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins because like what we've all been saying, I think Julio Jones' best days are behind him. And I hate to say that because I actually do like him. But he's been injury prone. A.J. Brown, has been injured, but he does hold himself well, and he has had a pretty strong year.
Absolutely.
But T. Higgins, like you said, underrated, and Jamar Chase, quoting our dear friend Mark Halpern, aka Old Ops Guy, there is not enough water on this earth to cover Jamar Chase. Please do not sue me for using your quote, Mark. But yeah, because Jamar Chase has been on fire. Speaking of the devil, speaking of Jamar Chase, which cornerback is going to have the pleasure of covering him this week to make sure they're the water that actually covers him?
It's going to be Christian Fulton. We already, Mike Vrabel has already made this call practically because, Fulton has familiarity with Jamar Chase. They are childhood friends. They grew up together. They've also had the pleasure of playing with each other, against each other. But, when asked recently, Vrabel was asked this question about Fulton's familiarity with Jamar Chase. Will that help the Titans? And in Vrabel's exact words, I hope so. That's all I've got. See, Vrabel's not even as confident in it either. And, when I look at that entire secondary, when you look at the corners especially, none of them can keep up with Jamar Chase. You got Janoris Jenkins, Buster Skrine, Christian Fulton, Elijah Molden. And then when you look at safeties wise, Kevin Byard, we know he can do. Amani Hooker is not that great. So when we really look at that secondary, none of those guys can keep up with Jamar Chase. Now, that being said, if, he starts getting double teamed, that's also a great opportunity for T. Higgins to explode. But the way I look at it, Jamar Chase is explosive. He's elusive. He can get by those guys, run some of the best routes I think we've seen this year from any receiver. And I don't think there's a shot in hell of any of these corners really being able to take on Jamar Chase.
Alex S., we're going to switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, just what the other Alex said, most of their corners, I doubt they really have much of a chance to contain Jamar Chase and stuff. I would be surprised if they really were able to shut him down But then again, T. Higgins could probably just take his spot and they could just use him more because of how Chase demands like double teams and whatnot. But yeah, I just don't see how they're going to effectively shut down Chase. And even if they do, then I think T. Higgins will go off. So I don't really, it's like kind of like pick your poison in a way. I don't see how they're going to be able to shut all of them down.
Yeah, I do agree with you guys for the most part, but I do feel like they can shut them down, maybe not effectively, but I feel like one of the biggest X factors, and I know we're going to talk about them in a bit, but my big X factor, I'll save it as a little hint. It will play a huge part in what will happen to Jamar Chase, and that man is over the top. Can I do the X factor? Might as well just good transition as well, or
go right ahead.
Okay. So my X factor for the Titans is Kevin Byard. One of the biggest things is with Jamar Chase is he most of his catches are beyond like pretty deep routes that he normally gets, either like streaks or posts, corners, like really deep routes he makes a lot of his big plays on. If Kevin Byard can be effective down covering that back end at safety and make sure kind of to hover Jamar Chase, maybe that can shut down Jamar Chase and make it difficult for the Bengals really to have a passing game, or they'll have to rely on T. Higgins, who, is a great athlete in himself, but he isn't Jamar Chase. So that's my X factor, and I think that's the way they do it, is they have Kevin Byard be a deep safety and make sure that Jamar Chase doesn't beat anyone down deep.
Okay, Alex S.
The X factors.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the Titans, it's pretty easy. It's Derrick Henry. It's like, will he have the same explosiveness that he did prior to his injury? And if not, as I think the other Alex pointed out, like Tannehill, he gets kind of dangerous with the ball if he's gets under pressure and stuff. So like they have to make sure that Henry finds his rhythm, or else it could be a tough one for Tannehill. And then, of course, for the Bengals, it's Jamar Chase, in my opinion. If he can keep making the big plays, I think he'll help lead the Bengals to victory potentially, depending on how much, like how many tackles he can break and stuff. So yeah, those are my two X factors.
Alex M.
Sure. So, all our respectable picks. When you look at Tennessee, obviously Derrick Henry, all eyes are on him. And when you look at Kevin Byard to me is probably the best safety in all of football and one of the most underrated players out there. Granted, he has given up the most yards this year than he has in his previous 3 years. And that could be a problem. But to me, it's not between them on Tennessee. This is more on Harold Landry III. When I look at what he has done this year, he has stepped up his game big. And the one thing that Joey B has been able to do these past 5 weeks is he's been able to handle pressure. Guys have sacked him, he's unfazed. But, and last week, what we saw with the Bengals, they actually had a 71% block win rate. When you look at it, and they've had 48% all season. So that was a huge step in the right direction. However, Harold Landry has 12 sacks this year. He is ready to take on this challenge. As outside linebacker, he needs to create pressure early on. He needs to get to Joey B. You're talking about a guy who this is his first year in the playoffs, second-year player. This is the opportunity that they need. They need to force Joey B to make these crazy throws. They need him to throw under duress. You need to get to Joey B, because what we saw last week, he was extremely calm. I mean, we all saw it. Granted, no matter what, if he stepped out of bounds or not, regardless, and the whistle was blown, he casually threw that touchdown pass like it was nothing, and he's getting chased out there. You need Harold Landry to step up in a big way for that team. Now, on the Bengals side, all those offensive weapons are huge threats. But when I really look at it, the X factor is probably going to be T. Higgins in this case. Because if Jamar Chase is starting to get locked up by Byard, and if Jamar Chase is facing these double teams, T. Higgins is right there. He can exploit that secondary. That secondary ranks around, I think, 26th and 27th in the league in passing yards allowed. they're one of the worst secondaries. Granted, Bengals also have one of the worst secondaries when you look at it, but last week was a little bit more impressive. But T. Higgins is going to be the guy that has to get open over the middle. He needs to make those plays when Jamar Chase may face double teams and can't get anything going deep. And I think he's going to make those kinds of plays, and it's going to turn the tide for the Bengals in this game and maybe put up a couple early scores.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Alex S on this one. I think I think for the X factor is going to be Derrick Henry for the Titans, but that could be a little shaky because again, he's coming back from an injury. Is he going to be 100%? And X factor, of course, I think for the Bengals is going to be Jamar Chase. And also, honorable mention, Joe Burrow. Because Burrow has been absolutely amazing these past couple weeks. Because, he's got the weapons. He's got Higgins. He's got Chase. But I think if he is downright going to be the top candidate for comeback player of the year. Can we all agree on that one right now?
Absolutely. He is the comeback player of the year.
Getting injured last year and coming back and just having a beast of a season. Yeah. All right. Now it's time to move on to defense. What do you think is going to be the defense's biggest task this weekend?
What defense?
I mean, what does each defense need to do to stop the other offense? Sorry.
Yeah. I'll start this one off. So like I said with the Kevin Byard thing, do that for the passing game. But also too, one of the biggest problems with the Bengals is their offensive line. So if the Titans are able to get pressure and get sacks, like Alex mentioned with Landry and a couple of those other guys as well, if they're able to get to Joey B, the most sacked quarterback in the league, then this could be a huge issue. And, less time in the pocket means more mistakes are going to be made. So I feel like that's the biggest thing for them. And then with the Bengals, they need to load the box. We mentioned with A.J. Brown and Julio, they're great receivers, but they're, maybe not at their healthiest or maybe not even close to their primes. And I feel like what you got to do is just load the box. So you put, maybe do a 4-4 coverage and have where you have 4 linemen and 4 linebackers, or you could do a 5-2. Try to load the box as much as you can, get 7 guys in there, and hope that, your cornerbacks can hold up. So I feel like that's the best way for both of these defenses to attack this week.
Alex M?
Yep. So going off of what Connor said too, because I mentioned the Titans defense, and when you look at, you need Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons to get pressure on Burrow. You cannot give that kid time in the pocket to make a pass, because if you give him enough time, he's going to take advantage of it and exploit that weak secondary. And, when I really look at it, this game is not going to be – the Titans have nothing to worry about, I feel, with Joe Mixon. Titans are the second best rush defense in the league for a reason. And Joe Mixon had a tough week last week, so I expect a tough week this week for him. So it's not going to be done through the run. They got to be generating a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. You're going to need a spy right there too. You're going to need to put out all the works on him, because you have to make this the toughest game of his life if you really want to take advantage of a young quarterback and make him throw these desperate passes in these crazy tough situations. But, I want to look at the Bengals defense here, because, Bengals defense, of course, like Connor said too, I believe, you got to stuff the box, you got to stop the run, you got to load that box, and, you have to pay attention to Derrick Henry's runs on the outside. He is extremely fast when we don't expect him to be. And, usually he's going to run up the middle. You're going to have to stuff that box, because if you can stuff it and stop him early on, the Bengals defense have allowed the most some of the most yards this year passing wise. But from what I saw last week, towards the end of that game, they were starting to give up some big plays, but Eli Apple actually stepped up. Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Awuzie, they made some incredible plays in the first half of that game and right around the third quarter that helped keep the Raiders to constantly get the Raiders to keep punting the ball. And the way I look at it is this game for them, if they can stop Henry on the run, and honestly, the biggest thing is if there is a lingering injury or if he's rusty to start, you need to exploit him. And that's the way it works. You got to exploit Henry's weakness right now on this being his first game back in 10 weeks. So that's how I look at it. And you want to force Tannehill to throw it, because I guarantee if he's going to be forced to throw it early on, he will commit a couple turnovers. And I think the Bengals secondary needs to be ready for that.
Alex S.
Yeah, I think it's really simple. The Bengals just need to focus on neutralizing Derrick Henry and stopping the run, and the Titans have to get pressure on Joe Burrow and try to shut down Jamar Chase and T Higgins, because like with the Bengals, obviously they have a weak offensive line. I think like the more pressure you get on Joe Burrow, the more erratic he could become, and the less likely he is to like be able to get the ball out. And like that's why Joe Burrow's going to probably have to try to make quick passes to Chase and Higgins if he wants to get the pass game going. And then for like the Bengals stopping the Titans, you have to force Tannehill to throw the ball and like try to eliminate the run. And then like the Bengals secondary is weak, I know, as the other I was pointing out, but still, if you can take away the run, force Tannehill to throw, that could cause some turnovers and help them win potentially.
Yeah, I think for the Titans, I think the key to the defense is going to be the pass rush. Like they have to, like you got to put pressure. Like what Alex said, you got to put pressure on Burrow, but you got to cover Chase. You got to cover Higgins, and you also for rush defense, you also got to cover Mixon. He's going to come out big. For the Bengals, I think the top key for the defense is going to be rush defense, because you got to, like what you guys said, you got to exploit Derrick Henry's weakness here. You got to cover him like there's no tomorrow. Tannehill is going to get the ball. And also when you were saying about the mistakes that Tannehill makes, you got to, the Bengals defense has to learn to capitalize on those mistakes. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, it is now time for predictions. Let's start with Alex M. Prediction for the game, good buddy.
We look at this game. This is probably the best matchup for both teams, and this is going to be a really exciting game. I do think the exciting offense of the Bengals is going to thrive in this game, and I really think that it's going to come down to the wire, and this final score is going to be 28-24 Bengals.
Okay. Alex S.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. Hopefully a lot of offensive points scored, because I like shootouts. So, I mean, I do think both defenses are going to try their best to stop that as well. I'm going to go 30-27 Titans.
Okay. Connor, my friend.
Yeah, I agree with everyone when it comes to being a really close game. I have it a little bit lower scoring, just because I feel like both teams are going to just be motivated to, stop the game plan of the other one. So I'm actually going with 24-21 with the Bengals. Okay. And also, just one quick thing I just remembered. There's only two teams in the NFL that have never won a road playoff game: the Texans and the Bengals. So that's a little history that could come with this week.
They already made history, so yeah, ready for another week for the Bengals.
Okay. You know what? I'll be honest. Like, I thought this was a game I'd be going back and forth on. And you know what? You got to look at, like, Derrick Henry, but is he going to be 100%? He's been gone for 10 weeks. Is he going to be 100%? Don't get me wrong. I love Derrick Henry. He was my first round pick in fantasy until he got injured. But that aside, and then you also got Chase for Cincinnati. You got Chase, Higgins, and you got Mixon. and who I think is a stronger team, I'm going to have to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's going to be a tight game. I'm going to say Bengals 27, Titans 21. Okay, now that is our coverage for the AFC. Now it's time to move on to the NFC. Okay, we got a game and the gridiron in Lambeau. It's going to be the San Francisco 49ers coming off their win against the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, Connor. Not sorry. I'm just busting your chops.
I know. We deserve to lose that game. It's fine. I mean,
yeah, I won't let you relive. I'm not gonna make you relive the pain.
As you just mentioned it to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad I was right about that. I was one of the few people that predicted the Niners to win that game. I was right.
Alex
Hey,
says,
you know what?
So was I.
You know what?
6-0 last week, so I'll take
To be honest, the team's not complete yet. It's still, we need to beat that offensive line, and there's still defensive issues. So, like, it's all right that we lost.
Okay.
That's how I look at it.
So anyway, the gridiron, Green Bay, Lambeau Field.
Mm-hmm.
The low is going to be 1 degree on Saturday night. You know what? Before we move on, I just want to ask you guys a quick question. And when I was recording Sports Insanity podcast today with Danny Boy Reginald, I want to ask you just a quick question. If you lived in the great city of Green Bay, you got offered tickets for Saturday night's game, and it's 1 degree low, freezing cold. Be honest with me. Would you guys go? We're going to start with Alex then. Would you go? Yes or no?
Absolutely. You know,
You would go.
Regardless of the weather, we're talking about a divisional playoff game in Green Bay.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, like this is one of the most exciting, historic.
And it could be Rodgers.
games, and
Who knows? This could be Rodgers' last game.
could be his
too, in
last
Green
hurrah
Bay.
too. I would want to see that just in case his last hurrah with the Packers. Until this also, this is going to be exciting. Maybe this is also a time for us to see what Rodgers is seeing on a potential team he could join next year in the 49ers, for all we know.
Connor?
Yeah, I would definitely.
I'm sorry. What were you saying, Alex? I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I'm starting rumors. Aaron Rodgers to San Fran. You heard it here.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Alex has spoken.
Yeah.
Connor,
That
what
would
do
be
you think, buddy?
interesting. Let's not forget he grew up a fan of the team too.
He did.
So that and I feel like this team is used to cold. Well, I forgot we're not even doing analysis yet. But no, I would go to that game. I went to the snow game in Buffalo a couple of years ago when it was like 4 feet of snow. And that was a blast. One of the best games I went to. So yeah, I would definitely go to that game.
Alex S., would you go?
Yeah, no question. I mean, I kind of wish I could have gone to that NFC Championship game in 2007 when it was -4 degrees and Lawrence Tynes kicked us to Super Bowl 42, where we beat the undefeated Patriots. But yeah, like no question, I would go, even though my face would probably freeze and there's one guy who had his mustache completely frozen.
And
But
I have to remind our dear, dear friend Lawrence Patchman Lang. Who did Brett Favre throw his last pass as a Green Bay Packer to? Corey Webster of the New York Giants. So anyway, with me, I was first thinking no, but I would go, but I would have to wear every layer known to man. And I'd
You're
have to wear
telling me you wouldn't go
ski mask.
bare chested?
I would not go bare chested.
Did you
Are you
see
sure,
Ryan
man?
Fitzpatrick this past weekend? Did you see him with his
I
shirt
did
off
see
rooting on
that.
Buffalo?
I did see
He
that.
was in
I would
Buffalo.
bet
without
if
a
he
shirt.
was at this Packer game, he would do the same exact thing.
God bless him. God bless him. But no, I would be in every layer and a ski mask.
Mhm.
And I would probably have to drink about gallons of chicken broth like they were doing last week in the Buffalo game.
There's something else.
Yeah, God bless the great city of Buffalo. And the city of Green Bay. God bless them all. Anyway, what was I say, oh yeah, the game. Aaron Rodgers' career against the 49ers in the playoffs, he has a 71.2 completion percentage, a 253.3 yards per game, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 8 sacks, and a 95.8 QBR. And the last time these two met was actually week 3 of this year, in which the Packers beat the Niners by a score of 30-28, and which, by a score of 30-28. So, what do you got? So you know what we have to ask with the 49ers, how are they going to slow down Davante Adams? In his career versus the Niners, he got 39 catches, 480 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 4 games. We're going to start with Alex S. this time.
So, I mean, your question is how they slowed down Davante Adams?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure how well you can do that in the secondary, to be honest. I think this is kind of off topic, but do we know the status of Nick Bosa yet, or is that still undetermined?
That one is still questionable right now. Fred is back, but is going to be back, but we're not sure about Bosa yet.
Okay, yeah. So, like, the thing, like, one of the key ways, like, if you can't slow them down the secondary, you would hope that they can generate pressure and a pass rush up front and force them and force Aaron Rodgers, like, to throw off his back foot or whatever. Like, in terms of the secondary, I mean, I can't really say off the top of my head, like, how they would really shut him down or, like, who. But, I mean, we'll just hope that some of their corners can clamp him. But I don't really see, like, how that's entirely possible, especially given that they have Aaron Jones in the run game as well, if they have to go to the run and abandon the pass. So, yeah.
Alex M.?
Honestly, there's a difference between when we talk about Jamar Chase and how he could face double teams, but when we're talking about Davante Adams, to me, this is, regardless of what Cooper Kupp did this year, to me, Davante Adams is, for these past couple of years, has been the best receiver in all of football. And he has been one of the most efficient and reliable receivers in all of football. There is nothing you can do. This man has faced double teams. This man has faced double teams down deep, and he's still making incredible catches. Now, the Niners secondary, they actually have been when you look at how they are in terms of stopping the run and stopping the passing game, they actually rank in the top 7, top 8 area in both categories. They have a strong secondary, but when I really look at this, last time they played, though this was weeks ago, and it was like the 3rd game of the year for both teams, Davante Adams had 12 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown on the 49ers. There's a difference between what the Niners have done against other teams in the regular season and what they have done when it comes to Davante Adams. When I really look at that secondary, you have Josh Norman, who we all know, he can get abused out there. You got Jimmy Ward, Tart, Mosley, Quan Williams, Jared Wilson. Like, these are guys that can't keep up with Davante Adams. He is, to me, the most reliable receiver in all of football, and I don't think anything can actually be done to stop him. Granted, there can be a lot to generate pressure on Aaron Rodgers, sure. That could stop him there, like if Bosa's back and Fred Warner making an impact right there as a leader as well. But if we're talking about just Davante Adams himself, there is no corner, no safety on that team that can actually take on the challenge of taking on Davante Adams. I don't believe anyone on that team can.
Yes, absolutely. I think Davante Adams is they're going to have a hard time with Davante Adams. And also, not so good news for the Niners, but good news for the Packers. Randall Cobb has been cleared to play on Sunday.
I'm sorry, is it 2012?
But let's give Randall Cobb some love. But I'll give my thoughts. I feel like the way Davante Adams, you can't really stop the guy. He's just a beast. I agree with Alex S when he says where the best way really to stop Devontae Adams is to sack Aaron Rodgers. But even that would be tough to do with Bakhtiari back in the lineup now. That offensive line's kind of beefed up. So really, you just got to hope. I mean, I guess, I know that's not really any football, strategy behind that, but you just got to hope you can stop them.
And let's just also point out the Packers have the fewest turnovers this year. So
yeah.
Really
so, and, they were able to do well against, Dallas last week with, executing like the run game and stuff. But like, I feel like they might have to like chew clock and just make sure that Green Bay just doesn't get the ball. Like, it sounds repetitive and sounds basic, but it's true.
Alex, what's your thoughts on Randall Cobb being cleared?
Which one? You just said Alex.
Alex S. Sorry.
I mean, like that gives them another option. I mean, like, I'm sure that they're probably going to spend most of their resources trying to shut down Devontae Adams, and if they're successful in doing that, that could open the door for Randall Cobb to go off. But I don't think they're going to shut down Adams entirely. I mean, Cobb will probably just be a complementary piece, if I had to guess.
Yeah. If anything, Cobb is not the next guy up. It would be Allen Lazard.
Lazard's been going off this year, and even
this isn't 2012 for Randall Cobb.
What was it last game? He had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, something like that. He was playing extremely, and he has been. So and he's become
MVS.
Okay, so we got to talk about Deebo Samuel. He had a hell of a game last week. Agreed?
Absolutely.
Easily.
So, what do you think how do you think he's going to affect this game?
I mean, sure. You go.
Connor, you go.
Oh, okay. I think he'll have a huge impact. He's actually, by also, not only has he helped the running game by taking Elijah Mitchell, making him have time not to, be on every single play. You give him another back. And then also Deebo helps kind of spread out the offense where Brandon Ayuk can be involved as well. Because, he struggled at the beginning of the season. And now I think with Deebo's more expansive, role, I would say, it has allowed him to become a more efficient player and get open and have more opportunities. So I think it's more beyond his play as well. So I think we'll have a huge impact this week, and just keep the same game plan. Don't switch it up. Don't have Deebo do too much of the run, and don't have him go receiving as the receiver, as much. Try to find a good balance.
Yeah, and I just want to say quick, just before I let Alex M go, Deebo Samuel last week rushed for 72 yards and scored 1 touchdown, and also received for 38 yards and 3 receptions. So, Alex M, you go.
And I think talking about those stats really speaks for what Connor was saying too. 10 carries is a lot, but then also Elijah Mitchell had 27 carries last week as well. He was the workhorse in that game, but you got Deebo less involved in the passing game. And this guy is an extreme versatile threat. We're talking about a receiver who had not only 1,400 receiving yards this year, but he also had 360 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. To me, this was unheard of, and I think we can all agree on that. And the way he fits into this game plan, Jimmy G is not reliable. He really isn't, and we all saw that, especially when you're up on the Cowboys and you throw a pick like that in that situation, you turn the tide right there. Jimmy G is not reliable at all. And, Debo, he shouldn't be as involved as in passing game just because of that. But on the rushing game, like Connor said, you'd be able to give Elijah Mitchell less carries a little bit, and you don't have to worry about him taking too much, especially considering Elijah Mitchell played 11, 12 games this year in the regular season, and he dealt with his own injury problems. You don't want him to actually take on that much of a load and get hurt, because to me, Elijah Mitchell is one of the key successes for this team in this game as well. But Debo, to me, one of the biggest reasons that offense might be able to succeed in this game against that ruthless Packers defense, which we all know they're going to keep eyes on Debo all day, is probably through the combination of Debo and Elijah Mitchell, because we know damn well it's not going to be through Jimmy G.
Alex S.
Yeah, to go along with the point that other Alex made about Jimmy G throwing the pick, he also missed a wide open Brandon Ayuk,
Exactly.
which could have put more points on the board. And honestly, I feel like Jimmy G almost cost them that game. So I do think they're going to have to rely heavily on Deebo Samuel's running ability if they want a chance to really win. Because, even as we saw in Super Bowl 54, when Jimmy G has to make the big throws in the most clutch situations, he's not able to do it. He's not a bad QB, but he's not above average. He relies mostly on run games, and that's how the 49ers got that far 2 years ago, and that's what they're going to have to rely on if they want to somehow beat the Packers this Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with all your points. I think Deebo Samuel absolutely was amazing last week, and if he has the same game, then the Packers defense is in trouble. Speaking of the Niners, okay, you guys brought up Jimmy G. Jimmy G had a strain on his shoulder last week, and I'm hearing right now he's good to go.
He is.
And we also brought up Warner. He's good to go. That's what you said earlier, Alex. Am I right? Fred Ward. Sorry, Ward.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Fred Warner. It's Fred Warner. Fred Warner is good to go.
And Nick Bosa is still
questionable. Yeah, they say they're hopeful. So that that usage of the word hopeful normally means it's probably like 90%.
It's a very vague word.
Yeah.
So if Nick Bosa's out, how much of an effect do you think it's going to have on the Niners?
Well, honestly, having Fred Warner back is absolutely massive. He's honestly one of the best middle linebackers in the game for these past few years, and he's an incredible leader for that team. But on that defense, the heart and soul of that pass rush is Nick Bosa. And he did get snubbed this year. I think we all know he should have been an All-Pro, most of it definitely for this year, and he wasn't. But Nick Bosa, when I think Connor can attest this too, when watching last week what he was doing, he generated immense pressure on Dak. And, I don't want to highlight that Cowboys game to upset you, Connor. I'm just saying
it's true. Yeah.
We saw the impact that Bosa can make on that team. He sacked Prescott, first half, and he was generating immense pressure, and Dak was forced in these tough situations. And he was also able to help stop the run and be a huge factor in stopping the running game too.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's one of the few ends in the league that is both in an elite pass rusher as well as an elite, run defenseman. He's able to stop, both plays, and he's super fast. That I think he made like Tyron Smith in that offensive line for Dallas look like high schoolers basically with how good of pressure he was able to put on them and on Dak. So that's a huge factor. And like we said, if we don't get any pressure from this 49ers D line, then you're going to see Devontae Adams get another 100 and something yards. We mentioned it, just a couple of minutes ago. So that plays a huge factor. And Nick Bosa is their best defenseman. So.
Yeah. Alex S.
Yeah, no question. Bosa is very important to that defense. because like last year when he tore his ACL in week 2, like that, I mean, the 49ers suffered a lot of other injuries, but that also really derailed them. So I think, like, yeah, as I said before, that if they want any chance of stopping Aaron Rodgers and stuff, they probably like they need Bosa to be healthy so he can help generate pressure up front and try to force Rodgers to make off-balance throws and whatnot. So yeah, Bosa is, in my opinion, their most important defensive player on that team.
I think it's really going to depend on what happens with if Bosa is back, because he's going to be the leader of that defense for that Niners team. And he's going to be the one that's really going to probably try to put Aaron Rodgers in a corner. So yeah. Okay, well, what is the X factor on both teams? Alex M?
When I look at the 49ers, to me, right now, the X factor, obviously we talk about Debo, but Elijah Mitchell. This year, Elijah Mitchell has rushed for 87 yards per game. And then this first half, he was on fire. He was averaging around 4.7 to 5 yards per carry. Then second half, he kind of slowed down, got more carries and was slowing down. But one of the biggest reasons why they were able to win that game was because through his rushing abilities and what he was able to do, they killed that clock. They had so much time possession. They had these long drives. And one of the biggest reasons is because of him and Debo. But I look at Elijah Mitchell in this game because this game is really going to be established through the run for the 49ers. This isn't going to be a passing game. We saw Jimmy G a couple of years ago in the NFC Championship. He only threw 5-6 passes all game, and that was through Mostert's rushing ability that they won that game and that defense. But for this team right now, you're going to need your rushing attack, and you're going to need Elijah Mitchell to have one of the best days of his life. And, looking at the Packers, honestly, you're going to have to say Packers, the biggest X factor is going to be Davante Adams. As much as I want to go with underrated option, when I really look at that defense and compare it to the offense right now, Davante Adams is a huge threat. We all know what Rodgers can do, but Davante Adams to me is the best receiver in all of football. He has been the most consistent and efficient receiver in all of football. And when we really look at what Davante Adams has done this year, improving upon what he did last year, he honestly is going to make a fool of that 49ers secondary. And that's the way the game is going to be won, is probably through the connection from Rodgers to Davante. So those are my two X factors looking at it.
Connor.
Okay, so my first X factor, for the 49ers, I'm going to say Brandon Ayuk. If he was able to be used to be spread out and when they're focusing a lot on Debo, if they're able to use him effectively, we've seen it very well done over the last 3 weeks with 3 straight games with 4+ receptions, and all of them having he had at least one reception that was over 30 yards in each one of those games. So that shows his explosiveness and big play ability that he has. And also, too, if you look at what he did during that Packers game earlier during that Week 3 matchup when he was struggling and not really involved with the offense, he had 4 catches for, I believe it was 37 yards and a touchdown. So it shows that they wanted him involved in that Week 3 one. So maybe they get him a lot more involved this week, as well as, how much they already have over the last couple of weeks. And then I'm going for the Packers, I'm going with David Bakhtiari. He came back last week, one of the best tackles in the league. And after a season, almost a season-ending injury, he was able to come back in Week 18 and do a great job defending. So if he's most likely going to be paired up with Nick Bosa for most of the game. So if he can contain Nick Bosa, then like we mentioned over and over again, Aaron Rodgers will have enough time and hit Davante Adams, hit Allen Lazard. So those are my two, David Bakhtiari and Brandon Ayuk.
Alex S.
Yeah, for the 49ers, to me, it's easily Deebo Samuel. I mean, he was like the reason why ultimately I think the 49ers ended up winning on their side. And because, as we saw, Jimmy G, he's just not reliable. Like when he becomes erratic, when he's pressured and has to, when the game's on his shoulders, he just becomes erratic. So like if the Niners need to rely heavily on Deebo Samuel, and I think he is probably their most reliable offensive player. For the Packers, I would want to say Devontae Adams, but I would go with Aaron Rodgers, especially just because, well, as Connor pointed out, this could potentially be his last game as a Packer. So like I think Aaron Rodgers just has to like proceed with business as usual, and he just has to just hit Devontae Adams and use Lazard, use Aaron Jones, and I think he just has to go about playing the way he usually does, and just try not to be fazed by pressure if Nick Bosa is playing, which we don't know yet. Just do what he's been doing, and I think the Packers should be in good hands and good position to win the game.
Yeah, I'm going to say for the 49ers, it's going to be Deebo Samuel. If you looked last week, he had a hell of a game. And if he keeps that up, I think it's going to be a big one, and it's going to be a good one in Lambeau. For the 49ers, this may sound standard. I am going to have to say Aaron Rodgers, because this might be his last game at Lambeau. Who knows? But quoting Stephen A. Smith, he's a bad man. He's going to have to hit Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. And I think Rodgers is going to be the beast he usually is. And for San Francisco, and I said this earlier when I was recording SIP with Reg, shameless plug for that when it's up. The defense late in the fourth quarter, their key is the team in general, use time wisely. You do not want to give Aaron Rodgers the ball back with time left, because he's going to do, Aaron Rodgers things. And we all know what those Aaron Rodgers things are, gentlemen, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely do. And, real quick, because one guy we did not mention at all that is going to be back, it most likely is Jair Alexander. So let's talk about how much pressure that's going to create for Jimmy G is going to force to throw the ball. Oh. Let's just look at it that way. If I'm not throwing it at Jair's way at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is the predictions for Saturday's game in Lambeau? We're going to start with, we're going to shake it up a little. We're going to go with Connor.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm going to go with 49ers. Actually, no. Changed my mind. I'm actually going Green Bay. There's two. These two teams are really good. So I'm excited for this weekend's game, but I'm sticking with the Packers here. I'm going 27-24 Packers.
Okay. Alex S.
Yeah, I'm going to go 30-24 Packers.
Okay. Alex M.
So, it's funny, Connor, when Connor's going back and forth on this too, it's the same thing with me, because I feel like the NFL set this up. Last week we had a classic rivalry between Cowboys, Niners, and you had the first catch. Then, now they play the Packers. This was the catch too. If Saints were still in if Saints made the playoffs, then I would expect them to be NFC Championship, and we expect the Niners to get the catch 3 right there. It's so perfectly set up right now to me. But, regardless, the Packers team, regardless of how people feel and how they've choked the past couple of years, this is a situation where Aaron Rodgers is in a must-win mode regardless. This could be his final run with the Packers, and he's not going to end it losing to the 49ers. And I expect the Packers to come out strong, especially on a defensive front possibly. And I think this is going to be a little bit low scoring. I'm going to go Pack 21 and 49ers 17.
Okay. Do I even have to say it? I am going with the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to say, I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to say Packers 27, 49ers 20. And I just want to say this. San Francisco, if Bosa's back, they're going to give Rodgers and them a run for his money. So, yeah, that's going to be a good game. And I just want to say, before we move on to this next thing, it's like with the games, it's really like no matter who you pick, it's like you have a reason for picking them. You know what I mean? It's not like out of nowhere if it was like, I don't know, the Chiefs and the Jaguars. And if someone said, well, I'm going to pick the Jaguars, then you would sit there and go, what? You guys get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I sound like I've lost my mind again?
Nope, you're not losing your mind this time, Bill.
Yeah, okay. So we're not going to get into too much detail, maybe a little bit of detail. What are your predictions for the two other games, which are the Sunday games? And like I said, folks, if you want a more in-depth analysis, go watch the Sunday Sideline Report. They're going to talk about them then.
Do you want to give us one?
Yeah, let's start with in South Beach and his swim trunks. Tom Brady and the Bucs versus the Rams. Connor?
This one's so tough. Man, these games are really tough. Insanely tough. I'm going to go with the Bucs here. Originally, I had the Rams, but, it's Tom Brady. Like, I just assume he wins. That's just the mindset you got to go with when it comes to Tom Brady. Just remember, it's Tom Brady. My dad brought up a good point. Sorry, I don't mean to take too long, but my dad brought up a good point today. He told me that, those defensemen, they can say, oh yeah, it's just another game. But when you see Tom Brady right across from you in the playoffs, then you're like, oh crap, like I'm in trouble. So I'm taking the Bucs here. I'm going 27-23.
Okay, Alex M.
This to me, this matchup and the Bills Chiefs one, regardless, I think whoever wins these matchups are going to the Super Bowl. Both of those. I really think this in reality to me is these teams' conference championships, basically. And when I really look at this game, on this past Sunday on the Sunday Silent Report, I was saying the same thing Connor said when it was a Tampa Philly. I said, it's I'm not going to bet against Brady, but this game, something I rarely do, and Connor can tell you this, I rarely ever pick against Brady. This time around, I am going with the Rams. To me, there's just something so special about the Rams this year. And I love what I see from Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford finally gets his playoff win. Now he has to face Brady. If he wins and then the Pack win, then he's got to face Aaron Rodgers, guy who he knows very well and has faced him many times. And to me, this is just a great story for Matt Stafford. And plus that defense, I love Von Miller, and I think he has, we all know what Aaron Donald can do, but Von Miller has stepped up these past few games, and especially last week and able to get to Kyler. I think he's going to chase down and get to Brady, and is going to be an effective leader in that role. And to me, the final score, this is going to be a higher score game, I think, but I think ultimately what we're going to see is Rams 31, Bucs 28.
Okay. Alex S., who do you got, buddy?
I have the Rams. Like, one quick thing to mention, I'm pretty sure the Rams beat the Buccaneers in week 3, but that game was in LA. This one's going to be in South Beach, but I do think like the Buccaneers, like Tom Brady has done a great job of still moving forward despite all the distractions with Antonio Brown and all the injuries. But I mean, like I know it's hard to pick against Tom Brady. I just feel like there's something different with the Rams, as the other house pointed out. Like they just have too much power right now. Like they're firing on all cylinders. I just think the Rams are going to win this game. It will be a close one, but I do think the Rams will ultimately end up winning. I'm going to go 24-20.
Okay. You know what? Alex S., Alex M., the number one rule in betting is do not bet against. The 11th commandment is thou shalt not pick against Tom Brady.
Except when the Giants play him.
Yes, that too. But in this circumstance, that rule is going to be broken a third time. I'm going with the Rams because their wide receiver core is fantastic. You got Cooper Kupp, you got OBJ, you got Robert Woods. Matt Stafford finally got his playoff win. You got on the other, but with the Bucks, and I will give the Bucks this, even though the Rams beat them earlier this year, they're going to be out for blood. They're going to be out for blood. But here's the thing: that Tampa Bay offensive line is banged up. No Godwin. You're going to be highly reliant on Mike Evans, and Gronk is going to be contained, and also Antonio Brown now has a new job as a stripper. So yeah, the Bucs have no offensive line. Well, they have an offensive line, but it's all banged up. And you know what? I know everyone said, "Don't bet against Brady. Don't bet against Brady. Don't bet against Brady." I think listen, if Brady wins, I'm not going to be totally shocked. It's Tom Brady. Are we going to find out if Tom Brady is immortal? Or as Dan Boy Reginald said, or he's starting to show some human qualities. So, yeah, we will see. And that game is going to be in Tampa, and I'm not going to be at that game because, as we all know, I have a restraining order of how many feet am I supposed to be away from him? 10,000 feet? Is that the restraining order?
I think that's what me and Mr. Brady's lawyers discussed. Yes.
And based off of Bill's rant just now, I think we can also guarantee after what he said, Antonio Brown is also looking for a restraining order against him.
Yeah. I'm already in talks. I got a couple of text messages.
Oh, Connor, you're my lawyer now?
Yeah, Mr. Brown's lawyer said that, Billy boy, you better buckle up because you're going to be put in a high.
Alex M. Connor's my lawyer. Should I be scared?
I would be right now.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, and also, I'm banned from the great state of Florida, so double whammy.
What happened?
I'm not banned from it.
He's not allowed to say on the air.
I'm not allowed to say.
He's not allowed to say it on the air.
I'm not allowed to say why I'm banned from the great state of Florida.
I'll ask later then.
But let's look into this next game. This is also
let's look into the next game.
Exciting games.
Yeah, because I don't think you guys want to sit here and talk about the great state of Florida. So anyway, okay, Buffalo and Kansas City. We're going to start with Alex S.
Yeah, this game hopefully will be another great contest back and forth. I do think the Chiefs are obviously on a roll, and I think the Bills are also on a roll. So I predict a very high scoring contest. I mean, I really want to pick the Bills just because of their great story and all, and I kind of want to see them go to the Super Bowl just because of the years of frustration being suppressed by Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and of course how they lost 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. Unfortunately, I do think the Chiefs will ultimately end up winning, but I think this will be a very fun game to watch, a very high-scoring contest. So I'm going to go about 45-40 Chiefs.
Okay, Connor.
Yeah, I also agree with Alex here. I feel like we might have to add the 12th rule eventually, where you say, I mean, you can bet the spread against Patrick Mahomes, but when you're talking about money line, you take Pat Mahomes. I'm taking the Chiefs here, 38-35.
Alex M.
This is the rematch I think everyone's wanted to see. After what happened with the Bills last year, and then this year the Bills smacked the Chiefs in the regular season. Chiefs. This is a Chiefs team that has battled so much adversity this year after going 3-4 and then winning 9 of their last 10 games. And the Bills were shaky, early on because they were winning games and it was sloppy. But Bills have turned up. What we saw last week, regardless of Patrick Mahomes throwing a pick, both quarterbacks threw 5 touchdowns. We're in for one of the best showdowns. And to me, this game. This also is going to be further adding a chapter to the Allen Mahomes rivalry that we're going to see. This, to me, is going to be the next Brady Manning rivalry. And I think we're seeing it right now. And, both offenses are superb. Chiefs have done better this year defensively and recent than what they did the past couple of years, but the Bills defense is on point this year, and their rushing game is actually much better than the Chiefs right now. Regardless of that, Chiefs, I think the Chiefs, honestly, that Patrick Mahomes is just someone it's really hard to bet against. Same with Brady. Connor just said it. This is like the next rule probably. Don't really bet against Mahomes either. But for me, after the way the Chiefs got embarrassed by the Bills in the regular season, I think Chiefs are now out for revenge this time around, regardless of what happened last year. And the Chiefs are going to win this game 35-31. This is going to be the epic showdown and a great shootout between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, you know what? I'm the oddball out. I'm going with the Bills. I actually think, and now listen, do not twist my words. I love Pat Mahomes. I think he's awesome. But you know what? Last week, Josh Allen. Did anyone see Josh Allen last week?
We all did.
He was making it look like nothing. He was just whoop, touchdown, whoop, touchdown, whoop, touchdown. Like, he was just making it look like nothing out there. And you know what? I think it's time for, because I would like to see, I think I'm kind of, not just because I really like Josh Allen, but I'm kind of picking it more because I would like to see the Bills win. Like, again, I have nothing personal against Pat Mahomes yet. Nothing personal against Tyreek Hill yet. And nothing against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Guess what? Yet. But
what we're seeing here, Bill, is that, if you have something against Patrick Mahomes later on, you're going to have something against one of the most humble quarterbacks in all of football.
Probably.
That's the way you're making this sound right
now. You guys just want to hit me every Thursday night, don't you?
No, but, I love your points, though. Bills, to me, they obviously can win this game, and it's going to be an epic showdown. Either team can win, but either team is going to the Super Bowl regardless, whoever wins the show. And
I will acknowledge, you are right. Pat Mahomes is one of the most humble quarterbacks in the NFL. I will acknowledge that. Pat Mahomes, if you're watching, and I know you are, Pat. I'm just joking. I'm busting your chops.
Not his brother.
Yeah, I was going to say Bill wants Jackson's number. That's what the rumor is around town.
Oh, God. Connor, I'm going to be seeing a restricted order from Mahomes soon, aren't I?
Probably.
Okay. Anyway, you know what? Alex, I'm glad you brought this point up, and I want to ask you guys this. You said that Allen Mahomes is going to be could be the next Brady Manning. Absolutely. I want to take on the other, because I was actually going to ask the same question. So, Alex, you know what they say: two great minds think alike. So we're going to start with Connor. Is Allen Mahomes the next Brady Manning?
You know what? I wasn't originally going to say that, but now that they're facing each other this year in the playoffs, that kind of adds the little thing around it. Yeah. Personally, I don't necessarily think it will be like that, just because, we're talking about Mahomes and Brady. But if we're talking about the closest thing to that, then yes. We're not going to ever have like a Manning, Brady type thing again, or it's going to be very rare. I mean, these two quarterbacks have the ability to do that, but, will their teams be able to sustain, the success that both the Patriots, Colts, and / Broncos had, and we're going to have to see if that's the case. But yeah, I would say this is the closest thing we have currently and probably going forward.
Alex S.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, like back in 2018 or 19, some people thought Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes would be the next Brady Manning, which obviously Baker Mayfield's not. But yeah, I do genuinely think that right now, I mean, the AFC kind of runs through the two of them. Like, I really do believe that whoever wins this game will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I don't know if I want to say that it definitely is the case, but like all signs are pointing to that the AFC will probably be dominated by the Bills and Chiefs for years to come, in my opinion. Like, because like I remember Like there was like a 20-year stretch where it was either Brady, Manning, or Roethlisberger who
Yep.
made this. Well, yeah, so I mean, I could see a similar type thing happening, but like I just don't want to say it yet for the purposes that it's only been a year or two. But this definitely looks like it could be a thing for many years to come.
And there's a lot of emerging AFC teams. You know, this year we saw the Bengals emerge with Burrow. You got Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. They had a rough year this year, but, you know, he was injured for a lot of that too. You also got the Chargers, who are going to be a future, you know, top team. So there's a lot of top teams in the AFC that we might see, you know, but they could be. Who knows? They could be that dominating rivalry we see, but there's a lot of good teams in the AFC on the come up.
I'm gonna say what I think it was Connor who said. I think this is the closest you're gonna get to a Brady versus Manning thing, because if you guys remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, I think it was the Chiefs-Chargers game, and one of the questions were, is Herbert and Mahomes going to be the next Brady man? And I think the big thing that we dismissed that was because Herbert and Mahomes play each other twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum.
And I think what was so good about Brady Manning is they didn't play each other every year. Because they were in two different divisions. And I think that's the same we're seeing right now with Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. Is they're in two different divisions, and they play each other in the in the regular season, but they don't play each other. But that's only, you know, it's not going to be as often because they're in two different divisions, and they are going to play each other in the postseason. Okay, moving on. We don't really have a 5 for you folks tonight, so what we're going to do is, with all the head coach interviews are now in full swing. So, who do you think is going to get, of all the vacant teams? And let me read them for you folks. The Jaguars, the Dolphins.
For preferences, could you actually go team by team and then we name who we think?
Yeah, let's go team by team.
Yeah, we can do that.
Just because coming off the top of my head, I'm like, oh no. Yeah. But
okay.
Yeah, you hit it.
All right, we're going to start with Connor. Yeah, I'm picking on you a lot, right, Connor?
Okay.
Jaguars.
Okay. I think the best fit for the Jaguars is somebody who actually was a former quarterback for the team, and that would be Byron Leftwich. You know, he's learned a lot under Bruce Arians over the last couple of years with the Bucs, and I think he's a great fit, great offensive mind, and they've been able to, you know, obviously you have Tom Brady there, so you know that offense is going to be great no matter what, but a lot of the play calling and the versatility of that offense and the resurgence of Gronk could be contributed to Leftwich. So I think he's a great fit. Maybe not an experienced guy that they might want, but at least it's a guy who is with that system, knows that team well, and would give would have a lot of fan support, I would say. Especially after a Urban Meyer run, which was a very unsuccessful and laughable attempt. So I feel like putting someone in there that the fans would respect would be a great decision.
All right, Alex M.
Yeah, I agree with Connor on this one. My pick for the Jags is Byron Leftwich. And when we really look at it, what he's accomplished in these past 3 years, even when he had Jameis Winston, regardless of him throwing 30 picks, Byron Leftwich's offense has generated, I think, either the most or second most points in the league in a 3-year span, and the same thing with the most or second most passing yards. And, you know, this is what that team needs. They need that you need really that offensive guy to help to turn the tide and help to groom Trevor Lawrence for the future. And I think Byron Leftwich is that offensive type guy that they could use that. And he's honestly, when we really look at it, he's the best fit for the Jags. I really do. I don't think any other coach is as good of a fit as Byron Leftwich.
Alex S.
Yeah, I genuinely think that Byron Leftwich would be a great fit. But also, part of the reason too is because like then he can stay in Florida, because obviously, the Tampa Bay Jacksonville thing. But another option I could see is Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs. I don't think it's likely, but I could see that one happening as well, considering that Eric Bieniemy's been searching for a head coaching job the last few years, and he needs the Jaguars need a good offensive coach to get Trevor Lawrence going. So yeah, I think either Leftwich or Bieniemy would be a good fit for the Jags in helping mold Trevor Lawrence.
I think Leftwich would be a good choice as well. But I also my pick is Alex. I actually agree with you. I actually think Bieniemy as well, because I was screaming this last year from the rooftop. Didn't you hear me screaming from the rooftop? That when they were even thinking about Urban Meyer, I was like, no. You're gonna need someone who has NFL experience, has been around the block, and that is Eric Bieniemy, because you are going to need someone who is going to mold Trevor Lawrence into an NFL quarterback. And listen, and I know a lot of people I've heard, Trevor Lawrence is so overrated. Oh my God, he's the biggest butt since Ryan Leaf. I wouldn't go that far. Did you see who he got stuck with? I rest my case. And there comes a restraining order from Urban Meyer, but I don't care. Yeah, I'm not losing.
He might kick you, Bill, so you got to watch out for that.
What was that, Alex?
He might kick you, so you got to watch out for that.
He doesn't know where I am. And remember,
or give you
I
a
can't
dance.
go there. I'm banned from the state of Florida, remember? But anyway, I think Bieniemy would be perfect for Jacksonville, because he is someone who is going to mold Trevor Lawrence into an NFL quarterback. Okay, next one is the Miami Dolphins.
I guess I'll start.
Connor. You want to start, Alex?
I was about to say, Connor started last.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, you start.
Let's because I really wanted to go off this because you guys, both of you and Alex just mentioned Eric Bieniemy. To me, my pick for the Dolphins is Eric Bieniemy. For what he has helped to groom that Kansas City offense and groom a guy like Patrick Mahomes, I really think it would benefit Tua substantially if he had a guy like Eric Bieniemy help to groom him into a more established quarterback and the more confident quarterback that Miami is looking for. I think Tua belongs in Miami, but I also think that he is not confident and as competent as he appears to be at times. And I really think Eric Bieniemy will help solidify him and that offense as possibly being a tough contender against the Bills and the Patriots next year.
Okay. Alex S.
Sorry, we were talking about the Dolphins, right? I'm sorry, I just lost track.
Yeah.
I do think Bieniemy would also be a good fit for them as well, and potentially Leftwich as well, just because it's Florida again, and as similar to the Jaguars, the Dolphins do need a good offensive coach that can get Tua going in the right direction, because I don't think he's a bust, but he needs to step up his game a bit, and he definitely needs an offensive mind like Bieniemy or Leftwich to help develop him into a good starting quarterback, and to hopefully be the franchise quarterback the Dolphins hope to get from him.
And Connor.
Yeah, I'm actually going on the different side of the ball, and I'm actually going with somebody that's also on the Tampa Bay staff. I'm going with Todd Bowles. The reason why I'm going with Todd Bowles is I think the Dolphins are kind of looking for a more experienced coach. And that's what Bowles has. He had a stint with the New York Jets. where he was able to actually coach hirings in, recent seasons. So I feel like that's one huge factor. And also with Todd Bowles, he was part of that Miami Dolphins organization and was the interim coach at one point. So they know he can do it, and they know that he's grown as a coach as well. So I think he would be a great fit for them as well.
I think it's going to be like I said, I think Todd Bowles would be a good choice because since he's been interim head coach, he knows the organization, which I think is a good thing. But you know who I also would think would be an interesting choice? Kellen Moore from the Cowboys, because I think his offensive run game and how he's really helped with Dak, I think he could be a really interesting. I think he could probably be a good fit and really help Tua. Okay, next one on the list, the Raiders. We're going to start with Alex S. this time.
Okay, this is an interesting pick because I like Bisaccia. I mean, I think he's a great players coach. I don't think he can really remain the head coach, given that he's more like a nice guy that he doesn't know the X's and O's as much. But if the Raiders were to hire a new head coach, I'd probably go with Jim Harbaugh, to be honest, because he was with the 49ers. He helped Alex Smith turn into a solid quarterback when he looked like a bust early on. And hopefully he could help Derek Carr to get to the next level and hopefully develop the offense more. So, yeah, I would probably go with Harbaugh for the Raiders.
Connor.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. I agree with Alex here. Jim Harbaugh is the best solution. He's gotten a lot of time away from the NFL game. He's definitely developed more as a head coach. And, he has been able to motivate that Michigan team to, get to the point where they got to a playoff berth this year, when previously there was no hopes of that prior to him stepping there. It hasn't been a perfect time there, but yeah, I feel like he would be a great fit for Las Vegas.
Alex M.
I'm going with Harbaugh too. To me, Harbaugh, this is the one guy that the Raiders really want. And Harbaugh already said the one team, as long as they approach him and offer the right deal, that he would want to go to is the Raiders. Harbaugh, in his 4 years as coach of the Niners, he went to 3 NFC championships and a Super Bowl. In his 4th year, sure, he ended 8-8, kind of lost the locker room, but then he still ended up having a great record. And then when you really look at what he's done for Michigan, I'm a big Michigan fan, and I will miss him if he does decide to go. But he has helped to, people gave him so much crap for quite a few years because he couldn't beat Ohio State and because he wasn't winning bowl games. But you know what? He did turn around the program. They went 61-24, 61-25 under him. And at the same time, he led him to a Big Ten championship. And I think this is the classic thing we saw with Pete Carroll. When Pete Carroll had his stint in the NFL first time, goes back to college, has success, and comes back and comes as one of the strongest coach. I think this is the same thing we're going to see with Harbaugh.
I'm going to actually agree with you guys on all this because I think you need someone who is, I don't want to say tough, but, coming through just everything that's happened in that Raiders locker room with Gruden and Henry Suggs. I think you need someone who is going to maintain some sense of order, and I think Harbaugh might be that guy. Okay, next is the Houston Texans. We're going to start with Connor.
Yeah, so this is where I actually had Bieniemy going to. I just feel like, it gives him at least, not a lot of great pieces, but at least capital to make, some good picks going forward. And I just feel like right now this team needs just a good leader. And this could also be a year where if you're able to draft they might go quarterback, probably not. But if they did go quarterback, you can have Bieniemy be with him right off the bat and, be able to mold him into, who knows, maybe the next Mahomes. Or you could go Davis Mills, who's shown some promise over the last couple of weeks. So that could be an option as well. So I think you give him a couple of years, I think he could create a really solid team in Houston. So that's my fit, the enemy.
Okay. Alex M.
Yeah, so to me, I'm going to look on the other side of the ball. I think that defense has been one of the biggest problems for Houston, especially this past year. And when I really look at it, the top emerging candidate to me is Gerard Mayo. And as crazy as it may sound, people might question it. Gerard Mayo, I mean, Texans do have a connection to the Patriots right now through, what's their names, Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby. So when we really look at it, there is that connection where Gerard Mayo could come in. And when you really look at what he's done, he actually has shown to be pretty impressive with this past year. And I think they need a strong, aggressive guy on the defensive side to help that defense grow. Because to me, the offense actually did show to be competent this past year. I think it was just really a defensive struggle for them. And I think that's what they're going to need moving forward.
Okay. Alex S.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brian Flores here. I mean, I could see him going to other places as well, but also part of the reason is because Brian Flores was, of course, the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, and Nick Caserio has Patriots ties as well. But also, Flores to me is a proven head coach that he gets his players to fight hard and work hard. And I really don't think the Dolphins should have hired them. I mean, we know that it came out that he didn't want to, and that's why they let him go. But I do think that they're looking for a coach that can get a lot out of his players, that Brian Flores is probably the best pick Texans can make.
Okay. To me, I would say Brian Flores would be a good pick because of his defensive ties. But what you brought up with Nick Caserio, how do you say his name?
Caserio.
Caserio. Thank you, Alex. Mr. Caserio, if you're watching, I'm sorry I mispronounced your name. But anyway, but the thing is, you just had David Culley, who had ties to Belichick. I think maybe you need someone who doesn't have any ties to Belichick. And I would say maybe Todd Bowles, because he's a defensive coordinator and the defense has been struggling. I think he would probably be a really good pick. I don't know what you guys think, but I think he would be a good pick. Okay. Next, the Broncos. We'll start with Alex M.
Sure. So to me, the Broncos, I think the coach that may be the best fit is Jonathan Gannon. What he's done on a defensive standpoint is what the Broncos need, especially with how they lack this year defensively. He has the diverse resume and he has the skill set to be the coach of the Broncos. It just may come to lack of experience as an aggressive leader, as a coach. But I really do think that he's actually the right kind of guy that team needs to turn around, especially for that defense and to become a contender in a tough division that they are in. When you look at that division, you have Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers. Broncos are the odd guys out right now, and they really need to make an aggressive move and put up a defensive front against these offense-heavy teams.
Okay. Altes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I mean, not that I think he's the best fit and all, but Dan Quinn, the Broncos showed a lot of interest in him, and I think he is a good defensive mind. I mean, I know he kind of faltered in Atlanta and all, after the Super Bowl, but I do think Dan Quinn is kind of the way they want to go, because he's similar to Fangio in a way, a good defensive mind. He just the offense, he just doesn't really get the most out of his guys, I think. But I probably see him going with Dan Quinn for that simple fact that he's similar to Fangio, and he did do a good job in Dallas, turning the worst defense in the league arguably around into a respectable group. So yeah, I'd go with Dan Quinn.
Connor.
This is where I have Brian Dabble going to the Broncos. I just feel like over the last couple of years, this has been kind of the issue with Denver. is they haven't really gotten the offense to put enough points to complement a defense that has held a lot of really good teams. Teddy Bridgewater isn't really the answer there. So, but maybe with Dabble in the offense he was able to create with Buffalo, maybe he can bring that genius to Denver. We'll have to see. Maybe it's with Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe it's with Drew Lock again. Maybe they give him a chance, or maybe they move on and try to get a guy. But imagine you got Dabble, and then let's say Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver. That would be an interesting pairing. So yeah, that's who I got, Dabble.
Yeah, because I'm glad you brought up Aaron Rodgers, because I think my pick is Nate Hackett, who is the Packers offensive coordinator. Whether it's Rodgers, Bridgewater, or some new quarterback they're going to have, if they get someone from the draft, I think they're going to need someone who is going to mold that new quarterback into an NFL quarterback. Guys, I'm really sorry right now. And who's best than someone who molded the best quarterback, one of the best quarterback in the NFL? No, top 5 hands down. Like, who's better than that? Am I right? Okay. Next on the list is the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to start with Alex S.
Yeah, I think Dable would be a good fit for them as well, because like I don't know like how you evaluate Kirk Cousins fully, or like I don't know, like he's not he's not terrible. It's just like he's never really good enough to like go deep. I do think they need, like, even though they moved on from Mike Zimmer, they need another offensive coach to help guide them. And I think Dable would be a good fit there as well. Hopefully he can get a lot out of Kirk Cousins, similar to how he got the most out of Josh Allen.
Alex M.
Looking at the Vikings, I think one of the best guys for the job is Doug Peterson. That team really needs that players coach. He's a former NFL quarterback too, but like in his time with Philly, he's as a head coach there, he helped to change that team regardless into a Super Bowl champion. And Doug Peterson, I think, has earned that chance to be back as a head coach permanently. And I think the emotional intelligence of him, as well as him as a veteran defensive mindset, can help to improve that team. Because that team, to me, offensively, I think they're really set when you really look at it. It has nothing to do. Kirk Cousins is always on the money, but it's that defense that really struggles the most. And they need that defensive scheme and that defensive mindset of Doug Peterson to connect with in order to help that defense grow and compete with that young division.
Connor?
This is where I have Nathaniel Hackett going. I think it's a great opportunity for them to steal a division coordinator. So that's a huge thing. And also, it will help grow that offense too. I mean, the offense is great, but if they're able to be more consistent and not falter at the end of games and have better time management, then this team could have been in the playoffs too, like with how close a lot of their games ended up being. So that's who I got there, Nathaniel Hackett.
I am going to agree with Alex M on this one. I'm going with Doug Peterson. I think, like you said, need someone to work with Kirk Cousins, someone who's an offensive guy and someone who is a player's coach. And look at when out of 3 out of the 5 seasons he was there, he led Philly to the playoffs and a Super Bowl win, which I still have nightmares about, but I think Doug Peterson can really turn the Vikings around. Okay, next on our sacred list is the Chicago Bears. I'm going to start with Alex M.
To me, this is where I have Brian Dable going. When you really look at what he accomplished in helping to develop Josh Allen into one of the premier elite quarterbacks of the NFL, and how he helped to really increase that impact that offense has on the league, I really think he's the kind of guy you need to help groom Justin Fields for the future. Because, Justin Fields really needs to work on the passing game. I was worried about that when he was drafted by the Bears, was that, he's going to run more than he throws, which honestly we have seen. And I think he's going to need a guy like Brian Dable who has experience with a mobile quarterback and help to groom him into an elite caliber, a potential all-pro elite caliber quarterback. And I think offensively, this is a young offense for Brian Dable to come into, and he would benefit extremely well considering what he just accomplished with the Bills.
Okay. Connor.
I'm going with Kellen Moore here, just because I feel like one of the biggest issues with the Bears was their offense was very predictable, and they didn't really get to, they were very ineffective for most of the season. So I feel like by putting in Kellen Moore there, you get a guy who, didn't really have success last week, but when you look at his overall work, he's able to create a number one offense with this, team, and has some of the most interesting and dynamic trick plays that we've seen over the last couple of years. So I think it's a young coach, and will give them a new kind of, a more mindset by the team, to embrace, the young, more sporadic and crazy trick play offenses and like read options and stuff. So I think that's a great fit there, Kellen Moore, to the Bears.
All right. Alex S.
Yeah, I think either Kellen Moore or Doug Peterson would do good for the Chicago Bears. As Connor pointed out, Kellen Moore is a young offensive mind that the Bears kind of need to help develop Justin Fields and to push him in the right direction. And then Doug Peterson, it's interesting because both Matt Nagy and Doug Peterson were under Andy Reid's coaching tree, and they're both with the Chiefs together at one point. I think like way back in like 2015 when Nagy was the QB coach and Peterson was the offensive coordinator or something like that. But I mean, I do think Doug Peterson, even though he has ties to Nagy, he would be an upgrade over him because he's shown that he can win and that he can like elevate his players and bring them to the playoffs. So, I mean, I think that like overall, probably Kellen Moore would be a better fit just because he's younger and has more innovation, I think. But Peterson also has proven that he can bring his team to the promised land. So I'd probably go with either one of those candidates.
I'm going to go with either Byron Leftwich or Brian Dable, because I think you need someone who is going to work with Justin Fields if he's playing. And I think Leftwich is going to be, I think he would be a good fit with him. And I think Dable would, because of the work he has done with Josh Allen. Okay, and now the time has come. And we've saved the best for last. Well, not the best, but. And what is a better way to start than torturing a Cowboys fan and having him go first? Connor.
I think you guys make the right decision and you guys get Brian Flores. I hate to admit it, but I think he would be a great fit there. And, Daniel Jones, if Brian Flores is picked, is not going to be the quarterback that he wants for the future. I'm really curious on what he thinks, but to know that he was so, eyes on Herbert when everybody was so into Burrow and so into Tua really shows how smart of a, coach he really is. And he's been able to create a really good defense with Miami there. And also he's outsmarted Bill Belichick multiple times. Not a lot of coaches can say that and have a really solid record against Bill. So I think that's where you guys go to hire. You guys take the experienced coach with Brian Flores.
Okay. Now the Giant fans talk. Alex S.
Yeah, I'm either Brian Dable or Brian Flores. Like, I would prefer Flores just because he has experience being a head coach. Like, one small fear factor I have is that he is under the Belichick coaching tree, and we saw how Joe Judge turned out. And I feel like Brian Flores is kind of the same way. Like, he can get the most out of his players, but if it doesn't work, he'll lose the locker room. That being said, I would be happy if Brian Flores was hired because I do think he knows also how to connect with the players a bit more. And then Brian Dable, I would like as well, just because of what he was able to do with Josh Allen. And if the Giants do plan on keeping Daniel Jones for one more year, and they want to see what he can do under Dable, like Dable's one of the few guys I think that could help Jones improve and prove that he does deserve his second chance. Since this is the last year on his rookie contract, I believe. So yeah, either Dable or Flores. I'd prefer Flores, but I think Dable would be a great option as well.
Alex M.
I think this is the moment where we finally see Mara make the best move he's made in a long time and actually bring in Brian Flores. From what I've heard, Mara loves Brian Flores. He has great respect for him. And, there's a huge link that Brian Flores could be going to the Giants. And I would absolutely love that because he's the type of coach that will create a new culture in that locker room. And that's especially what that team needs right now. Not to mention, if Brian Flores is in New York, there's a solid chance that Deshaun Watson could be linked to a trade coming here. And I would absolutely love that. Off field issues, as long as they stay, as long as certain things getting taken care of, I would love to have Deshaun Watson. That's one of the biggest things we need. We need to get rid of Daniel Jones. And I think Brian Flores going into that system, he's not going to want Daniel Jones as a starter next year. He's going to want to try and make a move for Deshaun Watson. And I think he would be, though, not just from that quarterback standpoint, but what we see from Brian Flores, it's ridiculous that he was fired in Miami. Absolutely. He was changing things for them. And it's a shame that it went the way it went for him being fired abruptly out of nowhere. It was a shock to everyone. But I think one thing that he really established there was a great culture. And that's something that the Giants haven't had in quite a few years, maybe even since 2011 when we won the Super Bowl. So for me, Brian Flores is the future.
All right. I have two options. One is Brian Flores, like you were saying, like this is a guy who, like you said, the culture of the locker room. But here's something that I am concerned about. And that is one, how allegedly him and the GM were bashing heads. And I think this is why it's important for the head coach and the GM to be on the same page. And Flores is a Brooklyn boy, so he grew up a Giants fan, by the way. Yeah, and he said he want that. And Alex, I think you'd be pleased to know, I think you guys probably knew this already, the Giants had requested an interview with Brian Flores today. So I think, and Deshaun Watson, he wants Deshaun Watson. I think that was one of the tensions in Miami. He wanted to bring in Deshaun Watson. And to me, quoting our dear friend Mike Rifkin, legal situation pending, I would want Deshaun Watson when all his legal problems are fixed. But yeah, Brian Flores. But my other pick is Brian Dable. I think if Daniel Jones is staying, and that's unknown at this point, if they do decide to keep Daniel Jones, maybe if he has someone like Dable who's worked with Josh Allen, maybe that could be the icing on the cake. And you know what? It's here's what I think. Also, Joe Schoen, however you say his name, was interviewed for the Giants GM position, and he's one of the top 3 finalists right now. And word going around that he's the favorite. If Schoen is the new GM, I'm about to say there's an 85 to 90% chance Brian Dable is going to be the Giants head coach. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But I think it's going to be either Flores or Dable. And if I were to give a wild card to this, I would probably say Harbaugh maybe. But if they said if his number one team is the Raiders that he wants to go to. So, but you're going to need someone who's going to establish a new culture in the locker room. And my one last concern about Flores is he's from like what Alex said, he's from the Belichick tree. Are we going to get another Belichick wannabe? Like, that's my concern. And, I was even thinking about McDaniels at one point, but I got out of the McDaniels cult. Because I was like, oh, maybe McDaniels. I don't want, because you know what he's going to be? If the Giants pick McDaniels, he's going to be if any team picks Josh McDaniels, he's going to be like Joe Judge. He's going to be a Bill Belichick wannabe. And, before the Giants let Judge go, Mara, I heard say, oh, Joe Judge is baby Belichick. I don't want baby Belichick. I don't want any more Belichick wannabes. Yes, Flores worked under Belichick, but if he can, and Dabble did too, actually. But Dabble had some experience since he's left New England. I think he went to someone before Buffalo, but I could be wrong. So I think Flores or Dabble would probably be the best choice for the Giants. All right, guys, our longest episode ever. I would like to thank Alex Ney, Connor Douglas, Alex Matai. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. And having to listen to all my stupid jokes. And if you want more content, and why wouldn't you? It's good. Go to www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com, where you can read our blogs, read our bios, and also check out all the podcasts we have, such as Sports Insanity Podcast, the one that started it all, SIN's The Throwdown, Wishbone Shotgun, The Face Turn, and Breakaway Bandits. We got great stuff coming soon. Hope you stay with us. We will see you next time. Thank you all. Stay safe.